Welcome to my humble abode, darlings. Come in out of the rain and get comfortable. I have a story to tell you, and I hope you enjoy. If you do, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Chapter 20. A few days on land. I was much impressed on touching land. Ned Land tried the soil with his feet, as if to take possession of it. However, it was only 2 months before that we had become, according to Captain Nemo, passengers on board the Nautilus, but in reality, prisoners of its commander. In a few short minutes, we were within musket shot of the coast. The whole horizon was hidden behind a beautiful curtain of forest. Enormous trees, and trunks of which attained a height of 200 feet, were tied to each other by garlands of bindweed, real natural hammocks, which a light breeze rocked. They were mimosas, figs, hibisci, and palm trees, mingled together in profusion, and under the shelter of their verdant vault grew orchids, leguminous plants, and ferns. But without noticing all these beautiful specimens of Papuan flora, the Canadian abandoned the agreeable for the useful. He discovered a cocoa tree, beat down some of the fruit, broke them, and we drank the milk and ate the nuts with satisfaction that protested against the ordinary food on the Nautilus. "Excellent," said Ned Land. "Exquisite," replied Conseil. "And I do not think," said the Canadian, "that he would object to our introducing a cargo of coconuts on board." "I do not think he would, but he would not taste them." "So much the worse for him," said Conseil. "And so much the better for us," replied Ned Land. "There will be more for us." "One word only, Master Land," I said to the harpooner, who was beginning to ravage another coconut tree. "Coconuts are good things, but before filling the canoe with them, it would be wise to reconnoiter and see if the island does not produce some substance not less useful. Fresh vegetables would be welcome on board the Nautilus." "Master is right," replied Conseil, "and I propose to reserve 3 places in our vessel, one for fruits, the other for vegetables, and the third for venison, of which I have not seen the smallest specimen." "Conseil, we must not despair," said the Canadian. "Let us continue," I returned, "and lie in wait. Although the island seems uninhabited, it might still contain some individuals that would be less hard than we on the nature of game." "Ho, ho," said Ned Land, moving his jaw significantly. "Well, Ned," said Conseil. "My word," returned the Canadian, "I begin to understand the charms of the anthropophage. Ned, what are you saying? You, a man-eater? I should not feel safe with you, especially as I share your cabin. I might perhaps wake one day to find myself half devoured." "Friend Conseil, I like you much, but not enough to eat you unnecessarily." "I would not trust you," replied Conseil, "but enough. We must absolutely bring down some game to satisfy this cannibal, or else one of these fine mornings Master will find only pieces of his servant to serve him." While we were talking thus, we were penetrating the somber arches of the forest, and for 2 hours we surveyed it in all directions. Chance rewarded our search for edible vegetables, and one of the most useful products of the tropical zone furnished us with the precious food that we missed on board. I would speak of the breadfruit tree, very abundant in the island of Gilboa, and I remarked chiefly from the variety destitute of seeds, which bear in Malaya the name of rima. Ned Land knew these fruits well. He had already eaten many during his numerous voyages, and he knew how to prepare the eatable substance. Moreover, the sight of them excited him, and he could not contain himself longer. "Master," he said, "I shall die if I do not taste a little of this breadfruit pie." "Taste it, friend Ned. Taste it as you want. We are here to make experiments. Make them." "It won't take long," said the Canadian, and provided with a lentil He lighted a fire of dead wood that crackled joyously. During this time, Conseil and I chose the best fruits of the breadfruit. Some had not then attained a sufficient degree of maturity, and their thick skin covered a white but rather fibrous pulp. Others, with greater number yellow and gelatinous, waited only to be picked. These fruits enclosed no kernel. Conseil brought a dozen to Ned Land, who placed them on a coal fire after having cut them in thick slices, and while doing this, repeating, "You will see, master, how good this bread is, more so when one has been deprived of it for so long. It is not even bread," he added, "but a delicate pastry. You've eaten none, master?" "No, Ned." "Very well, prepare yourself for a juicy thing. If you do not come for more, I am no longer the king of harpooners." After some minutes, the part of the fruit that was exposed to the fire was completely roasted. The interior looked like that of white pastry, a sort of soft crumb, the flavor of which was like that of an artichoke. It must be confessed that this bread was excellent, and I ate of it with great relish. "What time is it now?" asked the Canadian. 2 o'clock at least," replied Conseil. "How time flies on firm ground," sighed Ned Land. "Let us be off," replied Conseil. We returned through the forest and completed our collection by a raid upon the cabbage palms that we gathered from the tops of the trees, little beans that I recognized as the abro of the Malays and yams of a superior quality. We were loaded when we reached the boat, but Ned Land did not find his provisions sufficient. Fate, however, favored us. Just as we were pushing off, he perceived several trees from 25 to 30 feet high, a specimen of palm tree. At last, at 5 o'clock in the evening, loaded with our riches, we quit the shore, and half an hour after, we halted the Nautilus. No one appeared on our arrival. The enormous iron-plated cylinder seemed deserted. The provisions embarked, I descended to my chamber, and after supper slept soundly. The next day, 6th of January, nothing new on board. Not a sound inside, not a sign of life. The boat rested along the edge, in the same place in which we had left it. We resolved to return to the island. Ned Land hoped to be more fortunate than on the day before with regards to the hunt, and wished to visit another part of the forest. At dawn we set off. The boat, carried on by the waves that flowed to shore, reached the island in a few minutes. We landed, and thinking that it was better to give in to the Canadian, we followed Ned Land, whose long limbs threatened to distance us. He wound up the coast towards the west, then, fording some torrents, he gained the high plain that was burrowed with admirable forests. Some kingfishers were rambling along the water courses, but they would not let themselves be approached. Their circumspection proved to me that these birds knew what to expect from bipeds of our species, and I concluded that if this island was not inhabited, at least human beings occasionally frequented it. After crossing a rather large prairie, we arrived at the skirts of a little wood that was enlivened by the songs and flight of a large number of birds. "There are only birds," said Conseil. "But they are eatable," replied the harpooner. "I do not agree with you, friend Ned, for I only see parrots there." "Friend Conseil," said Ned gravely, "the parrot is like pheasant to those who have nothing else." "And," I added, "this bird, suitably prepared, is worth knife and fork." Indeed, under the thick foliage of this wood, a world of parrots were flying from branch to branch, only needing a careful education to speak the human language. For the moment they were chattering with parrots of all colors and grave cockatoos who seemed to meditate upon some philosophical problem, whilst brilliant red lorries passed like pieces of bunting carried away by the breeze. Papuans with the finest azure colors, and in all the variety of winged things, most charming to behold, but few eatable. However, a bird peculiar to these lands which had never passed the limits of the Arrow and Papuan Islands, was waiting in this collection, but fortune reserved itself for me long before. After passing through a moderately thick copse, we found a plain obstructed with bushes. I saw then those magnificent birds. The disposition of those long feathers obliges them to fly against the wind. Their undulating flight, graceful aerial curves, and the shading of their colors attract and charm one's looks. I had no trouble in recognizing them. "Birds of paradise!" I exclaimed. The Malays, who carry on a great trade in these birds with the Chinese, had several means that we could not employ for taking them. Sometimes they put snares on top of high trees that the birds of paradise prefer to frequent. Sometimes they catch them with vicious bird lime that paralyzes their movements. They even go so far as to poison the fountains that the birds generally drink from. But we were obliged to fire at them during flight, which gave us few chances to bring them down, and indeed we vainly exhausted one half of our ammunition. About 11 o'clock in the morning, the first range of the mountains that form the center of the island was traversed, and we had killed nothing. Hunger drove us on. The hunters had relied on the product of the chase, and they were wrong. Happily, Conseil, to his great supplies, made a double shot and secured breakfast. He brought down a white pigeon and a wood pigeon, which, clearly plucked and suspended from a skewer, was roasted before a red fire of dead wood. While these interesting birds were cooking, Ned prepared the fruit of the bread tree. Then the wood pigeons were devoured to the bone and declared excellent. The nutmeg with which they are in the habit of stuffing their crops flavors their flesh and renders it delicious eating. "Now, Ned, what do you miss now?" "Some four-footed game, Monsieur Anorex. All these pigeons are only side dish and trifles. And until I have killed an animal with cutlets, I shall not be content." "Nor I, Ned, if I do not catch a bird of paradise." "Let us continue hunting," replied Conseil. "Let us go towards the sea. We have arrived at the first declivities of the mountains, and I think we had better regain the region of the forest." That was sensible advice, and was followed out. After walking for 1 hour, we had attained a forest of sago trees. Some inoffensive serpents glided away from us. The birds of paradise fled at our approach, and truly I despaired of getting near one, when Conseil, who was walking in front, suddenly bent down, uttered a triumphant cry, and came back to me bringing a magnificent specimen. "Ah, bravo, Conseil!" "Master is very good." "No, my boy, you've made an excellent stroke. Take one of these living birds and carrying it in your hand. If master will examine it, he will see that I have not deserved great merit." "Why, Conseil?" "Because this bird is drunk as a quail." "Drunk?" "Yes, sir. Drunk with the nutmegs that it devoured under the nutmeg tree, under which I found it. See, friend Ned, see the monstrous effects of intemperance." "By Jove!" exclaimed the Canadian. "Because I've drunk gin for 2 months, you must need reproach me." However, I examined the curious bird. Conseil was right. The bird, drunk with the juice, was quite powerless. It could not fly. It could not hardly walk. This bird belonged to the most beautiful of the 8 species that are found in Papua and in the neighboring islands. It was the large emerald bird, the most rare kind. It measured 3 feet in length. Its head was comparatively small, its eyes placed near the opening of its beak, and also small, but the shades of color were beautiful, having a yellow beak, brown feet and claws, nut-colored wings with purple tips, pale yellow at the back of the neck and head, and emerald color at the throat. Chestnut on the breast and belly. 2 horned, downy nests rose from below the tail that prolonged the long, light feathers of admirable fineness. and they completed the whole of this marvelous bird that the natives have poetically named the bird of the sun. But if my wishes were satisfied by the possession of the bird of paradise, the Canadians were not yet. Happily, about 2 o'clock, Ned Land brought down a magnificent hog from the brood of those the natives call bari-outong. The animal came in time for us to procure real quadruped meat, and he was well received. Ned Land was very proud of his shot. The hog, hit by the electric ball, fell stone dead. The Canadian skinned and cleaned it properly, after having taken half a dozen cutlets, destined to furnish us with a grilled repast in the evening. Then the hunt was resumed, which was still more marked by Ned and Consel's exploits. Indeed, the two friends, beating the bushes, rousing a herd of kangaroos that fled and bound along on their elastic paws. But these animals did not take flight so rapidly, but the electric capsule could stop their course. "Ah, Professor!" cried Ned Land, who was carried away by the delights of the chase. "What excellent game, and stewed, too! What a supply for the Nautilus! 2, 3, 5 down? And to think that we shall eat that flesh, and that the idiot on board shall not have a crumb!" I think that, in excess of his joy, the Canadian, if he had not talked too much, would have killed them all. But he contented himself with a single dozen of these interesting marsupials. These animals were small. They were a species of those kangaroo rabbits that live habitually in the hollows of trees, and whose speed is extreme. But they are moderately fat and furnished, at least esteemable food. We were well satisfied with the result of the hunt. Happy Ned proposed to return to this enchanting island the next day, for he wished to depopulate it of all the edible quadrupeds. But he had reckoned without his host. At 6 o'clock in the evening we had regained the shore. Our boat was moored in the usual place. The Nautilus, like a long rock, emerged from the waves 2 miles from the beach. Ned Land, without waiting, occupied himself about the important dinner business. He understood all about cooking well. The bari-outong, grilled on the coals, soon scented the air with the delicious odor. Indeed, the dinner was excellent. 2 wood pigeons completed this extraordinary menu. The sago pastry, the artocarpus bread, some mangoes, half a dozen pineapples, and the liquor fermented from some coconuts overjoyed us. I even think that my worthy companion's idea had not all the plainness desirable. "Suppose we do not return to the Nautilus this evening," said Consel. "Suppose we never return," added Ned Land. Just then a stone fell at our feet and cut short the harpooner's proposition. So quoth this raven. I hope everything's going well, my darlings. I have to tell you, I have been in touch with a wonderful steampunk author, and she asked me to read her book, which was it had a nod to all of the classic steampunks, mostly Verne, but there was some Wells in there, I will say. And when she gets it all polished up, it's a wonderful, wonderful story. She has agreed to let me read it here. Hopefully I will be done, well, we'll see, with 2,000 Leagues and Master of the World before we read that. But I am excited for that upcoming. Anyway, have a lovely weekend, everybody. Bye-bye. What? You're still here after the whole story? I really appreciate that, darlings. Please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't. And I always love to hear from you. Have a glorious day, my darlings.